If you want to learn CSS from the very basic, then this video is for you. In my last video, I have created an HTML series video, and that video was for the beginners who actually want to learn HTML from the very basic to advanced. I assume that you know HTML. Now you want to learn CSS. Let's say you built a web page. Let's say this cool web page. Now you want to do CSS for it. So you want to learn CSS from the very basic. So this video is going to be very helpful for you. As you can see, I have this web page and I will do CSS for it, and I will show you how you can style this website using CSS. So let's start the video. So this is my project, and in my project I have image and I have a video and I have an HTML file here. Now let's create a CSS file. You can press Ctrl+N from your keyboard, or maybe you can just go to the file section here and then click on new file. Now I will save it Ctrl+S. Let's say I want to save it as custom.css. So this is my CSS file, and here I will do style for this web page. So let me access this CSS file. So if you want to access any CSS file in HTML file, you just have to link it at first. So in the header section, here you can see we have head section. So inside the head, we have to mention here link, and you just have to link it. So type link here, press tab, and it will create a link structure for you. And here you can see we have type text or CSS. So our file is CSS, and in the reference section here, you just have to give the CSS file name. So the file name is custom.css. Now if we do any style here, then it will be accessible in this HTML file. Let's say I want to set CSS, or let's say we will do CSS for the body at the very beginning. So basically we will do CSS for the body part. Inside the body we have content, so we will do CSS for this content. Let's do it step by step. So here I will select body, and if I want to access body, so I will select here body, and we have some CSS attribute. Let's say padding and margin. So let me just write here padding first. Padding, let's say I will use here 0 pixel, and margin is 0. So what is padding and what is margin? Let me show you. Let's say I want to do CSS for the header. Okay, so I will say here header and curly braces, and inside the header I will say that padding should be 20 pixel, and let me just set a color here. Let's say background, and color would be RGBA color. So I will go to the browser here, and I will go to RGBA color picker, so that I can pick RGBA color. And RGBA color means you don't need to use a raw color. Let's say I want to use green here. So if I use here green, and then I can increase or decrease the opacity here, as you can see. So like this. So let me just select a color here, and yes, this one, and I will just reduce the opacity here, and let me just copy from it. If it is done, I mean you want this color, so just copy it and just go to the browser, I mean code editor, and here you have to just paste it. And now if I go to the browser, and if I go here and if I refresh it, now you can see this is our header, right? And inside header you can see there is space inside this div. So this is called padding. We have added 20 pixel padding from top, from left, from bottom, from right. We have added 20 pixel of padding, and that's why it creates space inside it. And if I remove it, let me just remove it, and now if I refresh, now you can see there is no padding, right? There is no space in between the div or header, right? And if I add padding, then see the result, and if I refresh, then you can see there is padding or space inside the div. So padding actually create space inside the element. Let's say I will use here margin now, and let's say 10 pixel, and cancel it. Okay, now if I refresh, now you can see this div, this header actually creating space outside of it. Here you can see it now a little distance, it takes gap here and here also. I mean when I use margin, it will create space outside in the top, left, bottom, and right. Here you can see. So let me just remove it, and if I refresh, now you can see there is no gap outside the div. So padding is actually work to create space inside the div, and margin actually work to create space outside the div or element. I hope you understand, right? Okay, so go to the next one. Let's say in header we have a text, right? This is my first page, so I want it to be in center, right? So let's say we have an attribute, CSS attribute, and that is called text align. So text align means where actually your text will be. So I will say here center, and now you can see my text is at the very left, and now if I refresh, now it will go to the center. So this is how you can do CSS. You can do style for the website. So yes, these are the attributes. These are called attribute, right? Padding, background, and text align. So we have a lot of attribute. You don't need to learn everything in details. You just need to learn what actually need you. Here you can see I need padding. That's why I have used here padding, but I don't need margin because I don't need enough space outside this div. So I don't use here margin, right? So whenever you need something, that time you can just learn it. Okay, so you don't need to memorize all the thing because we have database for this, right? If you search something in Google Chrome or any search engine, you will find it. So why you need to memorize all the thing? So you shouldn't memorize all the thing. You just have to learn something that actually needed for you, right? Okay, now let's say we have done with our header. We have added padding, background color, and our text align is now in center. Here you can see. Now let's do CSS for the paragraph, and here we can see our next step is for the section. So yes, I will do CSS for the section here. So let's do some style for the section. We have to access it, so we'll say here section, then curly braces, and inside the curly braces we will do style. We'll add some padding for it. Let's say 10 pixel, and we want actually margin. Let's say I want to create a gap from this header, right? So I will add here a little bit margin. So for 5 pixel, let's say 5 pixel. If I refresh now, you can see we have created some space inside this div. If I set here a background color, you will understand better. So if I say that background color, so we have another property that is background color, and if I say here red, now you can understand. Here you can see we create margin so that it gets some space outside of this div or section, and also for the inside we have used padding. As you can see, we have used 10 pixel of padding. So this is the padding. Okay, and if I remove the margin, let me show you, then you can see there is no space outside this div or section or whatever you said. Okay, and if I add margin, then it will show it. Okay, I don't need actually background color here, right? It's look awkward. So let me just remove it and refresh it. Now you can see we have just small padding, I mean small space in between the element, I mean the div, inside the div. So yeah, that's it. And now we will do CSS for the paragraph. So let's say I want to increase the text size. So what can I do? I will say here I want to do style for the paragraph. So I will access here by writing P and then curly braces, and inside the curly braces we will say, let's say I want to increase the font size. So I will say here font size would be, let's see how it actually look like. So you can see it's much bigger than our title. So let's decrease the size. Here I can say 20 pixel. Yeah, that's okay. So now everyone can actually understand. So in a web page, actually your content or your text size should be at least more than 14, and in between 14 to 20. Let's say 14 to 18 will be the best choice. So here I will say 16, and if I refresh, now you can see. And if I let's say I increase it to 18, and now if I refresh, now this is the text. Now what next? We have unordered list here. Let's say I want this list in the center. So I will do CSS for this, and let's say I will say here ul comma li. So I will access both ul and I mean unordered list and the list. So I will say here text align center, and our text should go in the center. So our text in center, but as you can see our list item not in center. So if you want to remove this list item, here you can see bullet item, you have to say here list style and you have to say none. So we have set the CSS attribute that we don't need style actually, so we said none here. List style none, and if I refresh here, you can see there is no style and our text is in the center. So it's not look awesome. So let's say I want this UL in the footer section. Let's say actually I don't need this UL in the header section. Okay, so I need this in the footer section, so I will go to the footer section and here I will paste it, right? Okay, now if I go to the browser and refresh, now you can see there is no UL and we are in the footer. So let's just do CSS for the footer also, and here let me just do CSS for the footer first. So yeah, here in the custom.css I will do CSS for the footer. I will say here footer, and I will set a background color, and for the color I will go here color picker, and from here I will pick a color. Let's say this one. Okay, no problem. Or maybe I need some dark portion. Okay, so yeah, I have select this one. So now just copy it and go to the code editor, and here you just have to paste it. And if you go to the browser and refresh it, now you can see the changes, and here this is the footer. Let's say I don't want this space, so I will say here, so inside the footer I will say let's add padding of 10 pixel or maybe 20 pixel, let's say, and here I will say I don't need margin, so I will say margin bottom 0. If I refresh, now you can see there is no space outside this footer, I mean in the bottom side, right? And we have added some padding, I mean space inside the section or div, whatever you say it. And let's say I want this text in the center, so I will say here, so our footer has a paragraph also, so let's give it a class. Let's say footer p, and I will access it in the CSS. So here you can see we have access footer and everything in a way, but now I will show you the different way to access class. So these are the tag, and that's why we have just say here the tag name. But now we want to access this p tag, but it has a class. You just have to access the class. So to access a class, you just have to keep a dot at first and then class name and then curly braces. So this is how you can access a class. And if let's say you have an ID here, let's say for the URL you have ID, so you just have to set here an ID, and ID would be, let's say, to access ID you just have to give a hash at first, and then ID name is footer UL. And if I set here background color, let's say green, if I refresh it, now you can see there is a background color. So to access ID you just have to give a hash at first and then the class, I mean ID name, but to access class you just have to give or write a dot at first and then the class name. Okay, let me just remove it, I don't need it. So yeah, from here also. Okay, now in the footer I will say so this is the class of footer paragraphs. I will say text align center, text align center. And now if I go to the browser and if I refresh, now you can see our text is in the center, right? So let's decrease the padding size here, it will look awesome. Okay, that's it. Okay, so now let's say I want to change the text color. So to change text color we have to write here color, and let's say I want white, I'll say white, and if I refresh, now you can see our text color is changed. So let's say you want to change the text color for whole page. So to change the color for the whole page you have to say here star. Let's say you want to change for the whole body, for the whole page, so you have to say here star, and here you just have to, let's say I want to change the color to red, so I will say here red, and if I refresh, now you can see all the text color has been changed, right? Yeah, that's it. So actually I don't need it. And now what next? So we have table here, right? Okay, we have an anchor tag here, and let's do CSS for the anchor tag. And if I go to the browser and if I refresh it, now here you can see we have a button, click here. When we click here, it brings us to W3 school, right? So let's go back, and here you can see we have underline here and our text is blue. So let's say I want to remove the underline, so I will say here, so this is anchor tag, so I will take this anchor tag and I will say here anchor tag, and our anchor tag text decoration should be none. So text decoration attribute actually remove the underline from the anchor tag or link. Now if I go to the browser and refresh, now you can see there is no underline, right? So let's say I want to add hover effect. Hover effect means, let's say when I hover mouse on anything, let's say it will pop up or its color will change, something like that. So this is called hover actually. When I actually keep mouse on it, then it will change. So to add hover effect in CSS, you just have to, I want to add hover effect, so I will say colon here and then I will add hover effect. Okay, then I will say hover, hover, and curly braces. And now let's say I want to show a color, let's say background color green and text color white, let's say. If I refresh now, when I hover on it, then you can see its background color is changing and text color also. I want to add a break here. Let's say I want to add a break, so I will say here BR. Now if I refresh, now you can see our image and video in the new line. So that's it. Let's say I will do CSS for this image, so I will say here in the CSS file, I will say image, then curly braces. So let's say I want to add border on it, so I will say here border 1 pixel solid and the color, let's say red or blue, whatever you want. And now if I refresh, then you can see we have added a border outside the image, right? And let's say we just increase the border size to 4. And now if I refresh, now you can see a bold border here. So this is how you can add border, and you can also add shadow effect also. So let me just remove the border, and if I want shadow effect, let's say if I refresh here, now you can see there is nothing outside the image. So I will use here shadow. So to use shadow, we have an attribute that is called box shadow, and here you just have to give the value, let's say 0, 0 and 7 pixel. And now if I go to the browser and refresh, now you can see there is shadow right outside the image. Here you can see. Okay, let's say I want to show this image here, and this video is in the right side. So let's do it. So I can do it using two way. I can add padding for this image. I can use here padding left. Let's say I want to create a space in the left side, so I will say here 50 pixel. And if I refresh, now you can see our image. Oh sorry, I have to use here margin, right? Margin left, because I want to create a space outside this image. I will say here 50 pixel. And if I refresh, now you can see it's now creating more space in the left side but not in the right side. Now let's say 500 pixel. If I refresh, now you can see our picture or image is in the is almost in the middle, right? But the problem is here you can see this image is not now responsive because we have forcefully create space here, and here I have shown you that our image is not responsive, and that time you have to use media query if you do it forcefully. But we have some other attribute. By using them, you don't need to add media query. So what is media query? I will explain everything later because media query is a little bit confusing matter. So yes, I will discuss it later. Let's say I want to show them side by side, but in a in the middle, and their width and height would be same. Add this image and video in a div. So I will say here div, and I will cut it from here and I will paste it inside the div. So we have created a div for it, and let me just create a class here, and inside section I will say here, and let's say I want to show it also. Okay, that's it. And let's give it a class h2 from section. Okay, now I will access this two class. So let's say I want to show this image and video in a div, and I want to set the same width and height for this. So I will go here inside section class, I'll pick it and I will do CSS for it. So I will say here dot, and to access the class I have to say here dot and then class name and then curly braces, and inside the curly braces I will say our display will be flex. So now you see the new thing, display flex. So actually what is flex? So here let's say I want to show this item as a row, I mean in a row, right? So that's why I have used here flex, display flex. So this is also an attribute for the CSS, and here I have set flex. So this is also for the responsive web page, so we don't need to do media query for this. It will by default responsive. And here I will say justify content center. Let's say I want this both image and video in the center. So I have said here justify content center. Now I need to remove this. Let's say I don't want this, and now if I refresh, now you can see they are in the same div and they are in a same row, right? So if I now create some space in between them, I can say here is, so I will say here margin and right, margin right will be 10 pixel. So let's say if I refresh, now you can see we have create space outside this image in the right side, and if I increase it, then the space will be increased. Then here you can see, okay. So let's say I want this text in the center, so I will set the class h2 class h2 from selection, and I will access this class by giving dot at the first and then class name and then curly braces, and here I will say text align center. Now if I refresh, now you can see our text is also in the center. And what next? A table, right? Yes, now let's do CSS for the table. So here you can see we have a table, but it has no border and nothing. So let's do CSS for it. Let's style this table. So to style this table, let's say I want to access this table, so I will say here table and then curly braces, and I will set it width, right? So I want to set its width to let's say 500 pixel, and I want to set the position to relative, and I will say left 25%. Now if I refresh, now you can see our table is in the center, right? 30 pixel, because I want some space in the top. So I'll refresh, and here you can see we have created some space. And if I reset it, now you can see our table is in the middle. And now let's do CSS for the table row and table column. So I will say here tr, th and td. We will do CSS for these three things, and that's why we have added them using comma, right, at the same time. So I will say here I want border. Let's say I want border, so I want one pixel sorry, one pix. I will add here one pix solid white, let's say, or for now let's say black, right? Okay. Now if I refresh, and here you can see we have added, I mean border, right? And they are taking space in between them, right? So we have to just write here border, one more property, and that is called border collapse, and we have to just set here collapse. And now see the result. And if I refresh, okay, we have to just mention here, okay, so you want a border also for the whole table, right? So here I will say table, then comma, and now if I refresh, now you can see the result. Our table has a nice border, right? But the problem is, now actually I want to add some padding here. So I have added padding, right? Okay, I will add here margin top 20 pixel. If I refresh, now you can see we have created space at the top. And let me just say here, let me just add here h2, and I will say here, and I will access this. I will set a class for it, and let's give it a class here and named it student info. header or something like this, and I will say here dot and the class and then curly braces. I will say text align center. And now if I refresh, now you can see this is our student information. So we can set here position relative, and I can set here left 25%. If I refresh, now if I delete it, if I refresh, now you can see we have student information here. Okay, that's it. And we have a table, nice table. So let's add padding inside the table. So yeah, I will set here padding. So it's either row or column, right? So I will not do this for the table. So I will say here tr comma th comma td. So I'm going to access table row, table head, and table column at the same time. So I will say here padding of 20 pixel, and if I refresh, now you can see, so there is space inside column and row, right? Okay, so now our table is looks awesome. And let me just set a color for the head, table head th, and here I will say th background, and I will go to the color picker, and from here I will set a color. Let's say this one, or maybe this one. Yeah, this one or this one. Okay, this one. And if I copy it, go to the code editor, and here I will paste it. Now if I go to the browser and refresh, now we can see that head I mean our table head column color is now changed. And that's it. Now let's say I want to set here solid white, and if I refresh, now you can see it's look more beautiful now, right? And I will set color for the TD also, and now if I refresh, then you can see the result. And let's say I will change TD color. I will set the different color for the TD, and here I will set background, and I will go to the browser, and from here I will decrease the alpha opacity, right? And now I'll copy it and paste it here. Go to the browser, refresh, and now see the result. So now this table is looks I think good, right? Okay, enough. So now we have option for the form here, and here I will go to the HTML here, and our table is done now. Form. Okay, so I will add a h2 here, and I will say message, send message to us, send message. So I have to access this ID. So to add or access ID, we have to keep hash at first, and then ID name is send message, and I will say here text align center. If I refresh, now you can see we have a message in the center, send message to us. We can set the color for it. Let's say color green, and if I refresh, now you can see. Okay, now we will style this form. Okay, so let's go and here type form, and form, let's say we want to add margin at the top. So I will say here margin top, and I will say 30 pixel. Now if I refresh, now you can see we have created space. And but the problem is, as you can see, we are getting a scroll bar here, right? Horizontal scroll bar. So we can solve it using just one line. So let's say I will say here star sign, and it will do CSS for the whole page. And here I will say that overflow hidden. And if I go to the browser, now refresh, and here you can see our horizontal scroll bar is gone, but at the same time our vertical scroll bar is also gone. That's why we cannot move it. I mean, we cannot scroll the page, right? So to solve this issue, we have to write here overflow in y-axis. Actually, we want to set it auto. And if I refresh, now you can see we can now scroll it, and our horizontal scroll bar also gone, right? Okay, so now let's do style for this form, and we will say margin top 30 pixel. Okay, yes, now I will do CSS for the input inside the form. So yeah, here I will say, oops, in the CSS I will go to the input here, and I will say add padding of 30 pixel. If I refresh, and here you can see we have added. And now let's say, so I want this input in the center, so I will say our form text align should be center. And if I refresh, now you can see our all the column is in the center. Do one more thing here, and you have to just add br from here, and after every input you just have to add a br, right? And that is br to break the line. So here you can see we have break the line. And now let's say we want to add margin also to create space outside the input. So yes, I will say here margin also. Let's say margin of 10 pixel. If I refresh, now you can see we have created space. Okay, now let's say change that text field actually. So here you can see it is password field, so I will change it. If I refresh, now you can see the text area, right? So we will do CSS for the text also, text area also. So we will say here text area, and we will add padding. Let me just copy from here, and I will paste it inside it. And if I go to the browser and refresh, now you can see they are in the same size, right? I want to add shadow effect, so I will add box shadow here, box shadow, and I will add 0, 0 and 5 pixel for it. If I refresh, now you can see we have border on it, and let's say add same border for the text area also, and here. And if I refresh, now you can see we have added shadow, right? Shadow effect. Okay, so now our page is like this. Okay, and let's say now we will do CSS for the footer, and in the footer section, as you can see, we have list. So let's do CSS for the list, and here as you can see we have list style none, center, and I will say for the list we will say color would be white. And if I refresh, now you can see our list color is white, and I want to add hover effect on it, so I will say li hover, and then I will say background color, or yeah, background color is green or blue maybe. Now if I hover on it, you can see, and yeah, that should be inline block. So I will say here display inline block. If I refresh now, and here you can see now it is showing like this. Okay, so this is how you can do CSS, or you can style your whole web page. Now it's look far better than before, right? Okay, we have added hover effect. Let's say we want to add a pop-up effect here, so let me show you how to do this. So for the image, we have to access the image, right? So here you can see image, so I will add here image, and then I will add a hover effect on it, and I will say we have an attribute to pop up this image. So I will say transform, and that is the attribute, and here I will say scale, and scale will be 1.3, let's say. And if I refresh, now when I hover on it, you can see the image is popped up. So these are the basic CSS actually. So you don't need to learn all the CSS, you just have to memorize. You don't need to memorize all the CSS, right? You just have to learn how to actually write CSS, and according to your needs you will use them. I hope you understand a lot about CSS. For very advanced CSS, you just have to follow this YouTube channel. Actually we upload different kind of video, so this video is for the beginners. So if you want to learn more about CSS, then please subscribe this channel. We will upload videos for the advanced CSS. Then make sure to give a like and subscribe this channel, because we upload different kind of videos for the HTML, CSS, and we have done so many PHP project, and we have done with Laravel also. So if you want to learn PHP after this and then Laravel, then you can subscribe this channel. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.